It's 8:05 in the morning and Cooper's here. He's a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. For the last couple years he's been coming every 6 weeks for a trim up, but the last couple groomings he gets shaved down. Since he doesn't have much hair, I'm going to go ahead and start his grooming with the bath. I'm going to go ahead and take his jewelry off and warm the water up. In case you're wondering, why do people bring me a short-haired dog to get shaved down? Well, I don't know, but I can imagine it's probably because they want to stay on top of it before it gets out of control. His hair will get pretty long. And most people are not brushing their dogs at home. It's just easier to bring them in and get them cut short. His tail and his ears are going to be left longer. And the rest will be taken down with a 7-blade. I'm using this human head lice comb to remove his eye boogers while his face is wet. His eyes run really bad and his face gets pretty goopy. I'm going to go ahead and rinse his shampoo off. I'm going to go ahead and remove his eye boogers, or I should say eye crusties, from his other eye as well. You want to get these out while they're in the bathtub, because if you get them wet and they dry, it's even going to be harder to get it out. 5-second coffee break. I'm applying his conditioner too. This spaniel hair is really hard to get to dry, so I'm going to go ahead and blow dry him for just a few minutes while he's in the tub. And then I'm going to put him away, clean up my mess in the tub, and I'll get him back out and finish drying him on the grooming table. And if this is your first time here, yes, I am using a storage bucket to lift him up because I am an old groomer. And I don't like bending over into the tub all day because my back hurts. I make videos most days. And if you like watching dog grooming videos, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and you'll be notified when a new video comes out. Let's get started blow drying him. I'm going to go ahead and get my mask on. I'm also turning the fan on to boost the airflow. He's too hard to dry completely, so I'm going to go ahead and start his haircut using the number 7 blade. I'm using a toothbrush to clean it out because when they're still wet, the blade always gets jammed up. Like a lawnmower, when you're cutting the grass and the grass is wet and your lawnmower keeps jamming up, the blades are the same way. So as long as he's still wet, I have to keep coming back with my toothbrush and cleaning out the blade. If you're new to my channel, I've been grooming dogs for a little over 30 years, and I work by myself in a separate building next to my house on my property. My groom shop used to be a 2-car garage, and now it's a groom shop and a doggy neckwear shop that I'm open on Sundays for walk-in nail trims. And people can design their own neckwear. They can make ties, bows, or bandanas, and I can put the names on them and personalize them. Personalization is free. Here's an example of some of the Christmas collar bows that I made the other day, but I have a bunch of fabric swatches on the wall, and they can choose their own fabric. And here's an example of a collar bow I made for my basset hound the other day. His name is Tater. The hair in this dog's ears is so thick and it will not dry, so I'm completely shaving out the inside of his ears before I clean them out with a 40 blade. If not, I won't even be able to get to his ear hole. As usual, this guy always has some mats in his ears and they take a really long time to brush out. Well, for one thing, because they won't dry, which takes a lot longer to brush just because it's harder to brush when they're wet. I'm using a mat splitter. It's just like little razors and it cuts through the tangles. I found a big mat that I can't comb out with this, so I'm going to go ahead and hit it with my thinning shears to thin it out, and it'll brush right out. And he has some tangles in his tail, so I'm using a mat splitter to cut through the tangles. That way I just don't have to pull so hard when I'm brushing. King Charles Spaniels have very hairy feet, lots of hair between their toes, so I am trimming up his feet and cutting all the hair out from between his toes. I also shaved the pads of his feet out with a 40 blade, because if I don't, he will track everything in the house that he steps in outside. He's getting his nails trimmed while he's here today. They're not very long. I'm just taking the tips off. I'm done with his body. I'm working my way around to his head. I'm using the same blade on his head that I did on his body, a number 7 blade, all over. The only hair that he's keeping is the hair on his ears and tail, and I'm just trimming up his ears, making them nice and round. I'm using my curved chunkers to blend in his ears to the top of his head. I'm shaving the corners of his eyes out very carefully with a 15 blade. The hair is very thick in here and it will not dry. So I got to get the hair out for it to dry. He's actually one of those rare dogs that actually like to come to the groomers. When he comes in the morning, he is wagging his tail and he is super excited. And that's rare, trust me. That doesn't happen very often. I'm going over him one more time. We are almost done, just making sure there's no hairs out of place, and spraying him down with some conditioner. Wiping him off with a fragrance-free baby wipe. And I'm also getting a little bit of water and wiping his eyes out and making sure his face is nice and clean. Double checking his ears. Going over his eyes one more time. Look at that tail. He knows that he is done. Now, most dogs get a bandana or a bow at the end of the grooming, but his owners do not like them, so he will be going home naked today.